Thank you for watching videos by Jeff Sibelius and LandandAirPhotos.com. In this episode, I'm going to review the Ruko U11 Pro drone. Now, this drone costs under $350, but if you watch this video all the way through, I'm going to give you a link and a coupon code where you can save more than $25 on the purchase price. So not only am I going to tell you is it worth buying, I'm going to tell you where to buy it, and I'm going to save you some money in the process. What a deal. But the real question is it worth buying? Let's find out. Just before Christmas, I got an email from a friend of mine, Jane, and she asked me what was the best budget drone to buy. She just wanted to get started in messing with drones and taking some family snapshots, that sort of thing. And I, of course, steered her to the DJI Mini 2 or one of the Mini series drones. And 2 days later, I got a message from my ex-wife asking me the same question. And I, of course, steered her to the 3DR Solo and the GoPro Karma. Okay, no, I didn't. I steered her to the same thing. The Mavic Mini 2, one of the mini series. And in both cases, they responded that is more than they wanted to spend just to get into drones. Now, historically, I have kind of viewed drones in two categories. You've got drones up to the Mavic Mini that I always put in the toy category. And then from the Mavic Mini on up, those were camera drones. And I got to thinking about it, and I realized that there was a gap between toys and real camera drones. Somewhere in the $200 to $500 range, there were drones that kind of shared characteristics of both types of drones. So what are the different characteristics that differentiate a toy from a camera drone? Build quality, GPS connectivity. Does it have GPS connectivity, and how well does it work? App quality, the quality of the app itself that you use to control the drone. Toys tend to have really lousy apps to operate the drones, and obviously camera drone apps are usually much better. Gimbal. Does the drone have a gimbal? Does it work very well? For that matter, does it have a camera at all? A lot of toy drones don't have cameras. Video resolution and quality. Obviously, a toy drone is going to have much lower quality video, lower resolution, lower bit rate, and a camera drone obviously has much better of those. Does it use a Wi-Fi connection or a better transmission system? Almost always, toy drones are going to use Wi-Fi transmissions. Obstacle avoidance. Does the drone have it? That's a luxury, really, in a drone, and it's very difficult to find obstacle avoidance in a drone that costs less than $500. Return to home. This kind of ties into GPS. Some drones will fake a return to home that kind of heads backwards in the direction it was flying, but that's not really return to home. Will the drone come back to you if it loses its signal, or you hit the return to home button, or the battery runs low? That's a feature of a higher value drone. And of course, battery life. Toy drones have really awful battery life. You charge them an hour and a half for the thing to fly 6 minutes or 7 minutes or 10 minutes. And obviously your camera drones fly 20 minutes and longer. As I thought about it, I realized there's this gap between drones that maybe are $200 to $500 that kind of cross between the two big categories of toys versus camera drones. And I came to realize that they really could be categorized as starter drones. They have some actual use and value for a particular type of drone operator. A starter drone allows people to dabble with drones for the first time without having to spend over $500. A good example of this might be a teen's first drone. It allows people to learn how to fly. A starter drone isn't as automated as a camera drone, but it will have some features to make them easier to fly than most toy drones. And for people like my ex-wife and my friend Jane, it allows them a less expensive way to pop up a drone and take some quick family snapshots. About the time this all was happening, I was contacted by a company named Ruko, and they invited me to do a review on their drone, the Ruko U11 Pro. So I'm going to do a review on the U11 Pro. As I said before, this drone costs about $330 if I remember correctly. And if you stay through the end of this video, I can give you a coupon code where you can save 8%, which works out to more than $25. So that actually makes a very low-cost drone even cheaper. That's a good deal. Now in this review, I'm not going to compare it to a camera drone. I'm not going to say, here's how this drone works compared to the Mavic Mini or the Mavic Air 2. That's not a fair comparison any more than it would be to compare a Mavic Mini to a Mavic 3 or an Evo 2 Pro. Instead, I'm just going to look at this drone for the purposes that I just talked about a minute ago. Is this a good starter drone? Will it work for the people that I described and give them value for doing what they want to do with it? So let's get started with a look at this drone's build quality. So looking at the actual build quality of this drone, I think it's probably closer to a camera than a toy drone. I'm not going to compare it to the Mavic Mini 2, but if you want kind of a sense of how this is built, it's very close to the Mavic Mini 2 in terms of its build construction. It's not the more flexible type plastic that you find in many toy drones it's put there assuming that those are going to be doing a lot of bouncing on the ground. I don't think this was designed to be crashed. It's designed to keep flying. A problem with a lot of toy drones is the motors tend to fail all the time. You're constantly having to replace motors on them, which is one reason I don't fly a lot of toy drones. I haven't had this drone long enough to really test out its motor durability, but these are brushless motors, and I get the sense that these things are actually built pretty well. So I would put them more in the camera drone category as well. The best feature of all of the U11 Pro, I think, is its GPS connectivity. It does connect to satellites to help it hold its position. And that's really helpful when you're learning how to fly. It improves the hovering position, keeps it in control, even when it's dealing with modest winds. And that allows the drone to have a legitimate return to home function. So if you want to learn a drone, want to use this kind of a drone to learn how to use a higher end camera drone, ultimately, this is going to give you a much better experience, much closer to what you're going to be doing with the camera drone than a toy drone would. So this is probably a better first step than starting with a toy drone. So what else? The Ruko U11 Pro uses the Ruko GPS app. And as I said before, low-price drones typically have really awful apps. They're very buggy and laggy, and they got all kinds of problems. The app for this drone isn't too bad at all. It's limited because there's a lot of it's limited in its features, but overall, it's a well-organized, decent app. Now, the video transmission to the app is very low resolution, which you might expect, and there's a little bit of lag in it. But overall, if you go through the screen, the main screen that you're flying, your FPV view screen is it's well laid out. It's easy to see the things you want to see, like your telemetry and all that. No problem there. And its menu settings, those screens are also very well organized. Now, some of the buttons on those menu screens don't work, which is kind of what you get with a lower priced drone. But overall, it's not a bad app at all. And one thing I didn't mention, I really like how it has a voice prompt that tells you when you hit points like maximum altitude, maximum distance, your battery is running low, things like that. It triggers a return to home. It gives you a voice prompt. That way you're actually getting the information that this is what's happening with the drone, even if you're not happening to look at the app itself. So yeah, build quality, definitely on the dividing line between toy and camera, I think it definitely leans to the camera drone side of things. Now, having said that, you're talking about a drone that's well below $500. And so they're going to have to cut some corners just to make it viable to sell at that price point. The biggest problem with this drone is that it does not have a gimbal. The camera is there, it's and it will do the tilting, but there is no gimbal to keep your image stable. And so as you're flying around, you are definitely going to get a lot of bumps and jiggles and everything in your video, and that seriously influence the quality of the video that you get out of the drone. Also, not surprisingly, this does not have obstacle avoidance. It's really hard to find obstacle avoidance in a drone under $500. That's more of an added feature than a necessity, and this drone does not have it. And I'd also have to say that the controller quality, this definitely is a toy drone controller. It's very, very inexpensively made. It works fine, but this is not the same caliber of a controller you might get with a camera drone. So, overall, build quality on the drone is pretty darn good. I have to also add, and I didn't mention it before, it comes with not one, but 2 batteries, and it comes with a carry case. I wish the case had a strap, but otherwise, this is a really nice little case. Again, I'm not comparing it to the Mavic Mini, but it's very similar to the case that came with the original Mavic Mini in terms of the quality of construction and everything. But this is a nice little case, and when you figure that a battery for this drone costs $59 and you're getting 2 of them, that's actually really good value for a drone that costs $330 total price. So let's talk about flight performance. I'm going to show you some clips here for the next several minutes that I shot doing several different test flights with this drone, and give you a chance to see it fly, and then I'm going to make a lot of commentary about the flight performance as I go. One thing I will say, I'm not going to include it in this video, but there are certain steps that you have to take to get this drone ready to fly. It's a little bit more involved than the typical camera drone where you just take it out, boot everything up, and fly away. There are different things, calibrations and things that you need to do before each flight, and I'm actually going to do a separate video. I want to keep this one as short as I can, so I'm going to do a separate video that shows the steps for preparing the Ruko U11 Pro for flight, and I will link that in one of the corners up here, and you can check that out if you want. So for now, let's watch some flight video. So to start the motors on this, you pull the sticks down and in like most any other drone. There it goes. And then to launch, I'm just going to push the left stick up.
Fly.
I like to let the drone hover for a minute just to make sure it's all settled into its GPS connection. And you can see that we've got a slight breeze blowing here from this way to this way. And it's still holding its position pretty darn well. That makes a drone like this a lot easier to fly for a new flyer than a toy drone that has no GPS connection. Okay, I'm just going to fly it around a little bit now. This thing is really flying very nicely. I'm very impressed. The U11 Pro has 3 different speed settings. Now it's in its top mode. That was 3 beeps. I press it 1, it's 1 beep. Now it's in its slowest. Again, it's 2 beeps and it's in its middle mode. If you fly it in the middle or upper mode, it tends to be a pretty peppy little flyer. I'll show you here. You can also tell that the image is a lot more jiggly when you're flying in a higher speed. Okay, I'll put it in high speed. That's high speed mode. You can see it drifting quite a bit. I let go of the stick and it overflies a bit. It actually is locking in pretty darn well to its position though, so I'm very pleased with that. Again, I hover and it moves a little bit, primarily in the vertical axis, but it's holding its horizontal spot pretty darn well. Now if I switch this over to low power mode, single beep, now if I fly it, it's a little bit more stable and I get a little bit more stable flight out of it. And bring it back and it's coming back a little bit more smoothly, a little, obviously more slowly. Now this is very limited in the sense that there are no settings on the camera. I can't change my resolution. I can't change my shutter speed, obviously, or aperture. I can't change my ISO. It is what it is. And that's pretty much standard on a drone that costs under $500. The resolution is slightly higher than HD resolution. And I've got the drone up at 13 meters. It did not let me change from meters to feet, so meters is what we got for our metric. I'm flying forward now. Again, I'm still in the slow setting, and that's actually not too bad. Definitely want to keep it in slow mode if you want to get video with this thing, but that's not too bad at all. Pushing the stick all the way up, or the gimbal, the camera all the way up. So even at straightforward, you're getting a little curvature because it's such a wide angle lens and the subject isn't very close. I'll try tilting it down. There is no adjustment for the gimbal, or for the, I keep calling it a gimbal, for the camera. There, I tilted it down a little bit. You can't adjust how fast or slow it tilts. So that's basically the speed you get, which is pretty fast. Again, it's not really useful for doing while you're recording, but to set up your shot and then start recording, it works just fine. Let me point out one more thing about the camera. This is not a rectilinear lens. This is not a high value camera or camera lens. So as I tilt the gimbal down, or as I tilt the lens down, the camera down, come on, there we go, you can see to the corners of the image you're getting that barrel distortion, right? You can see the curvature there on the left and the right, and the middle is higher than the left or the right. So another tip, if you want better quality images out of this, is try to shoot it as straightforward as possible. Sometimes that's not possible, but the more you tilt this gimbal, the more curvature you're going to get in your image, the more barrel distortion you're going to get. One good thing about this drone not having a gimbal is that it really gives you more of an FPV experience if that's what you want to create. For example, when I push the right stick forward to make the drone fly forward, the drone will naturally lean like this. And as you can see on the view, my screen also shows that I'm leaning forward. If you have a gimbal, it will correct for that and it would continue to point forward. So you're getting that FPV effect. Same thing, if I were to bank to the left, it's going to do this, and you're getting that effect on the screen. Bank to the right, you're going to get that effect on the screen. As I'm flying forward, it'll do that and then settle back into this position. I let go of the stick, and it's going to do this. So anyway, you're getting a real feel for flying with this kind of drone because it does not have a gimbal.
Drone low voltage. Return home.
There's the battery, return to home. The drone is flying up.
Height limited.
Spinning around. Spinning around again. And now it's coming down. We got to be careful that it doesn't come down on our heads.
Drone low voltage.
It should stop a couple feet off the ground for a minute. Give me a chance to react if I want to. Yep, there it is. And then it'll land itself. Look at how close that is to where it launched. That is very, very, very good for a drone like this.
Stop, return home.
And down it goes.
Fly.
Now it's holding. This is why I like to let it hover for a minute before I take it out and buzz it around, just to make sure that we've got everything all locked up with the GPS connection. It is not really holding its altitude very well, but it is locked in horizontally. Okay, let's fly this around. I'm going to put it, let me check my speed. There's 3, there's 1. Looks like by default it goes into the middle speed setting, and I'm flying this at 1. There, it's holding its position better. All right, you can see Ryan is walking out there. I'm testing it at a little bit further distance. He's taking 100 steps, should be about 200 feet. And we'll make sure that the drone can get out there. Again, with a Wi-Fi connection, you really can't count on it having a long range. And that goes back to the Uniques, the very expensive drones. They didn't have nearly the range of the DJI drones. You know, that basically was a modified Wi-Fi connection. So we'll see how this does. Okay, he's out 200 steps or 100 steps. We'll see how close he is to 200 feet. All right, we're flying it towards him. Whoops, a little far. You can tell the wind is low today. It's like 5 to 6 miles per hour, but I'm up higher. I'm up 10 meters. And it's definitely getting poked around by the breeze. The wind is picking up too. Okay. Take it out there.
Distance limited.
Okay, we have reached my max distance, and that's as far as I can go. And it works just fine. Drone is, you can tell it's battling the wind a little bit, because even though I have the camera pointed all the way straight forward, the tip of the nose is pointing down, because you're definitely seeing that curvature. I have, see, I'm down to 55% on the battery. And we'll just fly around some circles here. Whee! One thing I haven't talked about is how fun this little drone is to fly. You don't typically fly your camera drones around like that, but this is just a fun little guy to play with. Good way to develop your stick control too. You can see that the wind is pushing this drone. it should be level, but because of the wind, the drone is actually at an angle like this. Back it up. But the GPS is holding its position.
Okay. Just look tired. Alright, you gotta bring it down, right?
It'll land itself. It'll land it. Look at how close that is to where it launched. For a drone that costs well below $400, that's pretty darn good. Okay, let's sum all this up. I want to talk through the things I mentioned before that define the difference between a toy drone and a camera drone, and see where the U11 Pro falls on each of those types of things. For build quality, the construction quality of the U11 Pro is closer to what you'd expect from a camera drone like the Mavic Mini, and it includes 2 batteries and a case, so there's a lot of value with this drone. GPS connectivity, the U11 Pro has GPS, which works fairly well. It's not going to be quite as precise as what you get with DJI's OcuSync, for example, but the U11 Pro typically held its position pretty darn well. For app quality, the Ruko GPS app is well organized and easy to use. Not all the buttons worked for me, and the video transmission quality was very low. Let's put this in the middle of the range between toys and camera drones. The U11 Pro has no gimbal, and it really impacts video quality. Ruko has other drones that do include gimbals, and I hope to have a chance to check one of those out in a future review. Video resolution and quality is more on the toy side of things, especially with the drone lacking a gimbal. I gave a couple tips to get the most from this camera, and a beginner drone pilot can get by with this. The resolution is fine for a starter drone, but I'd like to see Ruko bump up the video quality and bitrate on future upgrades. As far as the transmission system, this is a Wi-Fi transmission system, so your video transmission and your control ranges are going to be limited. Now, I took it out to somewhere around 60-65 meters, and I had absolutely no problem with it. But just understand, this is a Wi-Fi system, so you don't really want to take it. It's advertised to go further, and you can try it, but you're responsible for what it does, because Wi-Fi's just don't have the range. And the fact is, if you're using this to learn how to fly a drone, 60 meters is a lot of room to do what you need to actually learn and practice with it. As far as obstacle avoidance, obviously the drone doesn't have obstacle avoidance. You'll find very few drones anywhere near this price that do have it, so, no surprise there. As far as return to home, I showed you 2 different low battery return to home landings, and both of them were within a foot of where the drone took off. So this thing did extremely well when it came to return to homes. And finally, let's talk about battery life. I was getting 19 minutes and more every flight with this drone, and I was flying at max power, and I was shooting video and shooting pictures and all that, and still getting over 19 minutes. So you're approaching camera drone range with that kind of thing. So the battery performance on this is extremely good. Overall, U11 Pro performed very well, and there were some very pleasant surprises in terms of the GPS connection, holding the position, and return to home and battery life. You think back to the use cases I had for a starter drone like this, the people who should be looking at a drone like this. And I think this is an excellent choice for them to use as a first drone, as a learner drone, as a quick take it out of your pocket and shoot a family snapshot type drone. I think this is an outstanding option. In truth, I think a drone like this is actually a good idea for someone like me, someone like your experienced drone operators who have the more expensive drones. This drone doesn't do all the work for you like a higher end DJI or Autel drone. And it's a good way to brush up your stick skills and make sure that you're really controlling the aircraft. Having those skills is unnecessary when you're flying a camera drone all the way up until it becomes necessary, until there's a problem and you have to deal with it and the drone isn't working the way it's supposed to. So brushing up on those kind of skills every once in a while, that's not a bad idea at all. And this is a nice little drone to do it. And the truth is, it's just a lot of fun to fly around. So what about that discount that I was talking about at the beginning of this video? I provided a link in the description below. You click that and use the coupon code JeffS and you'll get an 8% discount on your purchase. That's more than $25 off the price of the drone, so that's a pretty darn good deal. That is an affiliate link, and if you buy from that link, you'll be supporting this channel. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. I mentioned before, I've set up a separate video that shows how you set this drone up for every flight. So if you're interested in getting this drone or you want to learn more about it, check that video out. The link is on the screen now. If you'd like to learn more about drones, click the subscribe button, the cartoon Jeff on the middle of the screen. Click on that and subscribe. Be sure to hit the little bell icon so you'll be notified when I publish again. I got a bunch of videos in the works. And as always, I really do appreciate your comments and your likes. And stay tuned. I'll be talking to you soon.